All right, everyone. Hope you're tuning in to see the Brandon Sanderson 10th anniversary edition, or I guess 10th anniversary questions or secrets for the Memory of Light. I've been thinking about streaming this for a while, and thought, you know what the heck, why not? Let's do it tonight. I mean, the only way I can do it tonight live, obviously, but or maybe posting reactions to it. So I'm hoping it actually kind of lives up to the hype and is not a nothing burger. So just waiting for the stream here to start. Hopefully it gets going here. There was a pre-poll that came out that I just voted on. Is will the final secret live up to the hype? And there's a lot of like final secrets. So I actually ended up voting no. I don't think it'll live up to the hype, to be honest. It's just like most things. Maybe when you're waiting, do they live up to the hype? Uh, Probably not. Especially I think with this type of stuff where fans have had 10 years to like think about these things, right? They've had 10 years to think about like it's just like it's a Game of Thrones, right? Where the sixth book's not out and everyone's been theorizing and planning in their head or just what the ending's going to be or what like they have it in their mind what they think it's going to be. And it's never going to live up to the hype when it does come out. So I'm hoping it's. I'm also a little late here, boys. Come on, Dusty Wheel. So I'm hoping it does kind of live up to the hype. There's a few, obviously, guys. There's spoilers here for Wheel of Time. So if you're a Wheel of Time fan and you haven't read the series and you're watching this, there's going to be spoilers. You're going to get spoiled. So watch at your own risk, I guess. But yeah, there's a few things I want to see, like them discuss, like the pipe. I want them to talk about the pipe at the end. Hey, Shad. Oh, James is here too. So we got James, Wheel of Time, and Shad. Yeah, Shad. Day's going good. Busy. It was a busy work day. I won't lie. So this is kind of cool to like chill and relax and like watch some Dusty Wheel. I've watched the Dusty Wheel for years since I originally like finished the Wheel of Time because I love the series. As you guys can see, I got it right there behind me, and I'm rereading it again right now. And yeah, I just thought let's like we'll stream this, like talk about it when it starts. When it starts, like they're already late here, boys. So hey, how's it going? Oh, you're still working, Shad? Are you working though? Are you actually working when you're watching the Dusty Wheel here? Hey, Daryl. Welcome to the stream, guys. I'm hoping they get going here. Like maybe I'll do a little refresh just in case I haven't missed it. No, no, not me. So um, but no, it's all right. I'm excited for this. I really hope it kind of lives up to the hype. Um, like Brandon, he's such like he's a troll, right? Like Brandon's a total troll. Loves to troll his fans, and so like he's a showman, right? He likes to put on that show and that pomp. So he's totally gonna troll us because like, but I still can't believe it's been 10 years when you think about it since Memory of Light came out. Like I only read it for the first time just over 2 years ago now, and I've done like two reads through the Wheel of Time, and I love it. It's an absolutely amazing series, and now I think it's been long enough that I can read it again. And everyone's starting like Eye of the World right now. There's like 6 or 7 people reading Eye of the World for the first time, and it's awesome. It's on break for 15. Good job, Shad. Yeah, it's crazy that it's 10 years. Like I totally agree that it's 10 years is nuts. So they must be running into some technical issues here. So I don't know. I it should be good. Like there's some amazing moments in Memory of Light or throughout the whole series that I just hope Brandon can talk about because like we know when Robert Jordan passed away, like he had left like notes to Harriet to finish the series. So I'm excited to see if he can reveal any of those notes because we know like um oh, there's a good comment here. That's right. Yeah, that's true. No endings to the wheel. Someone new is always discovering the story. That's so true. Well, it's just like the way it all begins, right? Like that's the thing I love about the Wheel of Time, right? And that's I think one of my favorite things is how the series began and how it ends, right? the wheel of time weaves, and age is coming past. And what's the line? Like, um, there was neither a beginning or end to the turning of the wheel of time, but this was the beginning, right? And so that's fantastic. And then you have the last book and the last line, like, there are no endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but this was an ending, and it's just it's so fantastic, right? It's such an epic series, and so I love it. I love that. Like I just love, like, Robert Jordan had, and Brandon now obviously had such a way of crafting, uh, just crafting prophecy and having that prophecy come true. Yeah, it say like Paul, right? It just gets me every time. Like some of the prophecy, some of the foreshadowing that he laid down in these books, absolutely fantastic. No one, now reading it again, and like especially in book one, like I just got to the chapter in book one where they're at Barillon, and they meet Min, right? And they're about to get all the profit. They get their fortune told, and it's so good. It's so good. Like the way he, obviously he's writing the series, so he has foresight on it, but and he also has self-fulfilling prophecy because he can write the prophecies now and then obviously make them work. But that's still a hell of a job. And the way he does it with like the Koreathon cycle, and this the man was like a master of quotes, and I think a lot of that is also to think of like Harriet too, how good of an editor Harriet was, and it's unreal. Yeah, so yeah, no, you're right. Like Brandon did a really good job with the ending of the series. There was like a little difference in the Gathering Storm, um, when with Matt. Like Matt felt a little different, but not a lot different, not like significantly different. So okay, so we're still not live here yet, but that's all right. Like I'm having fun talking to you guys, so let's just chat here in the comments. So like, what are you guys excited for? What are some of the things you want to see that are going to come out hopefully in this stream? And I hope you've all read it. Oh, thank you, Mimi. Like I appreciate that. Thank you for subscribing. Uh, that's awesome. No, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you could join me for this because I hope this is fun. I'm really excited for this. So yeah, uh, Paul's making a great point here. Love early Tom. And yeah, exactly. The thing with Tom's funny because you think he's evil, or not evil, but it's like, oh, he's kind of shady. I don't know if I trust Tom early. And it's funny seeing all these people reading Wheel of Time for the first time, and they're all of them have said like, I don't trust Tom Maryland. He's shady. He's a bad guy. He's a dark friend. It's like, it's so cute to to see that happen. So thanks, Jay. Yeah, like I really hope he does announce something that I enjoy. I really just hope he doesn't troll us, because Brandon Sanderson is like, he's known for trolling. He's such a big troll. So I don't know if you guys ever watched the release of the when he did like the broadcast for his release of the secret novels, and he's like all serious, and like he's got like a shit-eating grin on his face, and oh no, someone said it was canceled. Uh-oh. Someone said it was canceled until next week on Brandon Sanderson's chat room. Oh no. Let's see here. I'll wait around for a minute, and then they might put out a comment here. Okay, so let me see. I'm just gonna stop sharing that. I'll just put me up front here, and then we'll see what the Dusty Wheel announces. Because I hope they didn't cancel it. That would suck. Because I put this on like my notifications to watch all week. I was like, oh, this would be cool. Let's see here. Let's go to their channel quick. Be right there. Okay, did they move it? It looks like they must have. No, that's the celebration. They have an anniversary celebration, and there's like 600 people waiting. So, um, yeah, we'll see. We'll hold out for a few minutes. Because they have a banner where they can pin messages. So I think if there was like a message to be pinned, they'll let us know. So we'll hold out. We'll let's hope. Let's keep the faith. Okay. Well, either way, I'm excited. Like the Wheel of Time, I might even tune into their celebration of the 10th year anniversary of Memory of Light, which would be great. Because these guys at the Dusty Wheel, I don't know if you guys are subscribed, if you watch their channel, they're really good. I haven't watched them in a while, but they just make really good Wheel of Time content. Like they've great hosts, but I find with any kind of like super fan or like super fan like discussions, like I watch also like the 17 Shard and obviously Dusty Wheel. They've read it so many times, they know so much, and they like just even little characters like I don't know, like I don't know them all. Like I use the Watt Compendium app. I don't know if you guys have ever used it. It's a fantastic app. It's really good. Like while you're reading the story, you can tell the app like what chapter you're on, what book you're on, and it won't tell you like about that character up to the time of that book. So it's really well done. Yeah, it's reading some comments here. So the production team is usually direct. I feel, yeah. I think you're right. If they were, I think you're right, Paul. If there was an issue, they would have said anything. I haven't seen anything in chat. I've been keeping my eye on the chat, so I think it's just probably trying to work out, with Brandon's team and their team, because I think Brandon's on Mountain Time because he's I think he's out. I don't know where he's out. Is he in Ohio, or it's where there's a lot of I can't remember where he's from actually. I know because I'm still waiting for all the Kickstarter stuff to arrive, and hopefully I get notification of that ship soon. So should be good though. Should be good. I don't know if any of you guys did back the Kickstarter for the secret novels. Have you guys read Tress yet? Because I finished it. Utah, that's it. Thanks, Chad. Yeah, he's in Utah. Yeah, no, I finished. Oh, here we go. Here we go, boys and girls. All right, let's full screen this. I'm gonna get tiny again. That's great, Mimi. Like, yeah, he's a really good writer. Like I found with Brandon, I really enjoy his work, and you know, some things have been great, some things a bit of a miss. Like Tress, I thought was actually pretty good. I was surprised at how good Tress was. I originally kind of went in thinking I might not like it because I read all the chapters. Get the popcorn out, yeah, no kidding. Here we go. Oh, all right, can you guys hear too? Someone comment on below to make sure you can hear Brandon. Of course, Brandon can't be on a live stream without signing something. So, yeah, guys, no sound. Okay, let me fix that. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to fix that.
Not about the Cosmere or my other books. We are talking only Wheel of Time,
Wait, can
and
you
we'll
hear them
have
now?
full spoilers for the Wheel of Time.
Leave now.
Yes.
Honestly, we're gonna be talking about the end of A Memory of Light.
Yes.
In so many different ways. Basically, we will touch on probably 4 or 5 key things that happen at the end of those books. So
Got
if you
it.
have not read them,
Perfect.
please do step away.
Yep.
All right, so big
And there
spoiler
might be
coming up
spoilers
here.
for the television show. We're not intending to talk about the show, but
Yeah.
anything is on the table here. So
There you go. And we will be taking questions from the audience. I know some of you have filled out some questions on Reddit. Some of you have filled out questions on Instagram. And some of you are asking questions in chat. We'll do our best to get to as many as we can. But we're going to start off
He's
talking
signing
about
Words
some
of
secrets.
Radiance.
yes, some of
Kickstarter
the
books.
big questions people have.
So I know, Brandon, as soon as we mentioned secrets, everyone was hoping, not everyone, but a lot of people were hoping we were going to answer that question about the pipe.
The pipe.
Yes,
The pipe.
pipe.
If I remember correctly,
Mhm.
your answer was you don't know.
I don't know.
God
I
damn it.
legitimately don't know.
He doesn't know.
So I got handed this scene at the end where Rand lights his pipe, and I asked Harriet, and she said, "I don't know." Robert Jordan didn't say.
Shit.
I've
too
always
bad.
maintained my thought is that being so close to the pattern for so long gave Rand the opportunity to influence it.
Darn it. Oh.
And indeed, some of my writings brought him even closer to the pattern in A Memory of Light. Harriet says, and I've heard her say this multiple times, she just thinks Jim wanted to indicate that the fourth age would be as different from the third age as the third age was from the second.
Yeah, which
Well,
both of
that's
those answers
cool.
can be true.
Mhm.
I like my my good friend Mary's answer. She said it's a terangrial.
The
that would
pipe is a
be
terangrial,
the
I love that. I love that because it's
Yeah.
like the simple.
simple.
No, Mary, it can't just be a terangrial. That's not okay. So tonight's secret is not going to be about the pipe.
We
It's
don't
one of the
know.
Okay.
unknowns, right?
It will. You'll have to get an answer from Robert Jordan himself if you want an answer to that question.
There you go.
Thanks, Brandon.
So it is also not the
Thanks,
another
Robert
question
Jordan.
that comes
It's not
from the end
Brandon's
of these
fault.
books, which is who is Nakomi?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us, for those of you that answer is actually out there? We're going to talk a little bit about that right here. It's in a book. Brandon actually had Michael Livingston included.
Well, Michael Livingston was putting together his history of the world time. He's like, "There any tidbits you can give me?" And I'm like, seems like a good place. He was actually wanting to he poked on Nakomi specifically. He's like, "Is there anything I can say?" And I'm like, "Well, get permission from Harriet and Maria." He went to them and they're like, "Yeah, sure. It seems like a good place."
Nakomi showed up in a few visions.
So one of the most important pieces of writing that we got finished by Robert Jordan, and I tried very hard to include as much of the finished, quote unquote, finished writing as I could. It wasn't polished, but it was written, was the scene where Rand stumbles out, from after everything's done. And then he is blurry eyed. He's in Morden's body at that point. I think he is.
I thought he was in his own, but I thought the person says to him like, do this or something. I don't know. I have to go back and.
Yeah. I mean, she says, yes, that's right.
Yes,
that's the right thing.
Right.
Right. I've interpreted that as he's already done it. And because he's strong enough to carry the other body out at that point.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
So I've always interpreted that she's like, oh, what did you do? Oh, that's the right thing to have done, basically.
Okay.
I tried to include this as close to word for word as I could. And he can't make out the figure, but it's a woman's voice. And
that was Nakomi. Okay. I didn't know that.
You can go read the scene. It's exactly, well, it's not exactly, because there was a lot of line edits and things like that happened. Most of that was under Harriet's direction.
It was always hard to tell with Nakomi.
Basically, I'm like, all right. So we have this mysterious figure. Is this the same voice that spoke at Tarwin's Gap? That we haven't heard since Eye of the World. Who is this? What is this? Wow. And I thought, well, I need a foreshadowing for this. And I devised the scene where Nakomi shows up and talks to Aviendha. Ran it past the team. I'm like, I would like some other hint or foreshadowing at this person.
So that was a Brandon insert, at least that scene.
And
for sure.
I wrote that scene with Aviendha. I needed somebody there. I don't think that scene is actually happening in. I think that's Intel. I think that's not. I think she's asleep by that point.
Okay.
Now we're
not going to call that. Are we calling that canon, or are we calling that Brandon's?
So that's canon.
Okay.
I think, as I recall, she's asleep. That's canon.
Okay.
Now we stray into Brandon's interpretation, which is not canon, which is kind of a weird thing for the person who wrote it to say. But I very deliberately didn't. Robert Jordan's scene was vague enough by intent
was kind of
that I didn't want the text.
She
to
came in
give
so late
clear
in the series
answers,
that I'm like,
right?
I
Because I wanted Robert Jordan's text to be able to remain, like he wrote it so that Rand didn't know. What I think this is that this is an avatar of the creator in the same way that Shadar Haran is an avatar of the Dark One. That is how the perspective I used in writing it, but that's not actual canon.
Okay.
So
That
that's
is
always
my
theorized that
best
Rand became
interpretation
an avatar
of
the
what
creator
I think was
after.
going on. But that's subject to discussion and disagreement. I'm an authoritative, but not, or I'm an authoritative but not definitive voice in this specific instance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
So-
And a lot of people were asking that question once we
Mhm.
read what was in Origins of the Wheel of Time.
Yes.
You should go get the book.
Yep.
I
we
still
did
need
a
to
live
read
stream
Origins. It's
about
right
it.
behind me. I'm
But
going to
it's-
read it this month at
the
some
book's
point.
fascinating, but including that side of Nakomi, there's a section of it where Brandon talks about this thing that you're mentioning, and you left it. If this makes sense, your explanation was you left some kind of, it was vague in some parts. You said, I think it's like this, but not like this.
Yeah.
And so
Said you don't
did
see
seem like there was
Nakomi in any
room
other books.
to-
There's
random
room to
books.
question and disagree. I've seen really good evidence-based disagreements with my theory on this that I say, you've got good points. And so I am not the definitive voice for the Wheel of Time. Right now in particular, even when I was writing it, I could be the definitive voice if I wanted to be. Anything that I wanted to canonize into the books, I could. And I made the choices I made very deliberately to try to preserve things I thought that Robert Jordan wanted to be left a mystery.
Yeah.
And as I often say, I was Sam carrying the ring for a while. I gave up the ring
Sam.
after I finished the Wheel of Time, and I stopped being the definitive voice for the Wheel of Time. And so I can only give you kind of my impressions and recollections.
Which honestly, this is why all these people are here.
Yes.
To understand.
When you think about
how
Brandon,
you
like he
came to
really
those
just didn't like
conclusions.
rest on the laurels of finishing.
I
the Wheel of
asked a
Time.
lot
Like,
about
he
who
did his
Shadar
own
Haran
thing.
was and what it meant and things like this, and I'm like, that makes sense within the world building of the Wheel of Time. I would assume that the creator would do something similar, maybe. That was my theorizing on it, but
Gotcha.
yeah,
Because I think you had written about this where you said that Harriet was. All of Team Jordan said, we have no idea who this person is.
They did not know.
Yeah.
This was
clearly
another big question.
What are they going to reveal?
So
They don't know about
no
Nakomi.
answer
They
there,
don't know
everyone.
about
Pipe,
the
no
pipe.
answer.
Nakomi,
Half
answer.
Half answer on Nakomi.
Okay, so now there's a third one that some of you thought this might be, although others have pointed out this one has sort of been answered also. The question around the body swap itself. How did that happen? What's the theory there?
Okay, this is
and there was a couple years back, I want to say about 3 years ago, someone on Reddit posted their theory and kind of basically tagged you and said, hey, does this theory sound, is it sound? Basically the idea that we all recognize the Balefire meeting somehow
Entangled their souls
in some
I believe the Balefire entangling, connecting their souls is canon.
So
I believe that is legit the way it happened.
So that was back in like book
sense.
7.
I think he teased it and stuff, but I consider that canon. I consider that straight up canon, personally.
Yeah.
And I wrote the books as if that were the canon answer.
Okay. This is what you added. This is what you replied to that person about their theory.
Yeah.
You said, basically, I think you're right about the crossing of Balefire connecting the souls and bodies. You said, but as the second part of this, you said, there was something in the notes, or Harriet related something from the notes to you that Robert Jordan said, quote, the soul that wanted to live found the body that wanted to live, and the soul that wanted to die didn't go to the effort, or something to that effect.
That's exactly what I can't remember if she told it to me, if it's in the notes. If you haven't found it, then it probably was something she told me, because I wouldn't said what's going on here. Yeah. And that's the answer that she gave me.
That was such a Robert Jordan.
I don't remember seeing that line, but again, you definitely saw more things than I've ever seen in the notes, just because you got everything.
So that's the best answer we have.
Okay.
And that phrase that I use there, like, that comes straight from the source. It might be filtered through a few people, but at one point that came from the source, and so you can hold to that.
Just gonna pause it here for a sec. So, like, what he's saying, I remember is when Rand and Morden met in like is it Shale Ghul, or was it Shatter Logoth, and then they I guess their souls kind of merged, or they went down two paths.
Pretty firmly as
Were you satisfied by? I mean, the body swap.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Did you anticipate that was gonna?
I didn't anticipate it
would live.
But I know that, like, what Robert Jordan was looking for was for a chance for Rand to just put down the weight and go live a life. And I can only assume that he knew, once you're Rand al'Thor, you can't do this without being recognized.
Yeah.
Even your description is super distinctive.
Mhm.
And so the idea of putting him in another body seemed like a perfect way for this to happen.
Yeah.
And for, the idea that the dragon has died, there's the corpse, we can hold a funeral,
Yep.
and things like that is
Walk away, yeah.
is a fitting end. It's such an Aes Sedai answer to the dragon reborn has died.
Yeah.
That it's like a fitting end philosophically to the series as
It's
well.
kind of
I like
funny
the
with
circle it
Brand, like
makes,
how he's
though,
the
with
dragon
also
reborn, but when
these
you think about it,
two
he's the
people the
only
second
dragon
age
that
were
Yes.
best
finished the
friends.
job.
Mhm.
And there's something about, I don't know, even after everything,
Like,
the
he's
fact
the
that
dragon, really.
Rand lives in,
Yes.
in the body of, I know it's not the exact body
Nope.
because of transmigration, but
Yes.
still, I still like the connection of it. So,
Mhm.
okay, so those are the secrets that a lot of people thought or maybe asked or wondered if we'd be answering
Revealing.
tonight. That is not, I didn't see anyone mention this. In fact, I'm going to say this right now to my friends who know me really well, is I'm surprised that you haven't. Well, anyways, let's talk about the secret, Brandon.
Are we doing
So,
that? I thought you were
yeah.
going to do all the other stuff.
No, well, that's what I mean. So
Uh-huh.
I had the chance. Brandon invited me along with a number of
Okay, so we're getting
other
the
fans
secret.
in the
I guess
community
those weren't
10
like
years
the
ago or 12
secrets
years
that
ago
we
to
wanted to
help
hear.
beta read
Yes.
the final books. I got a chance to be part of Towers of Midnight and A Memory of Light.
I don't know that I got to beta read on the first one. I think Harriet was too afraid of it leaking.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if there are
That
beta
makes
readers.
sense,
If
yeah.
there were, it was
That's
like
gotta be
only
a huge
Jason.
risk.
Yeah,
or
I want to say,
something like that.
yeah, I believe Jason was part of that.
Yeah.
Jason Denzel of Dragon Mount was part of that one, and I believe even at that time, you're like printing the book out.
We printed, and
Like-
yeah, there was a lot of concern about digital copies of things back then. And I mean, it's not without reason. A Twilight book leaked and got out,
Yeah.
and that was devastating to the author.
Mm.
So I've
I
never
mean, who
been as
cares,
worried
though,
about these
that,
things.
but-
I show off early writing all the time, but she was trying very hard to preserve the legacy and memory of Robert Jordan. And
Harry
so
was
she didn't
super
want to
good,
have a leak happen. So
Yeah.
we had to jump through even a number of hoops with the digital copies.
I
we sent
signed
you.
an NDA for the Memory of Light
and
book.
got an
That's-
individual password.
actually and an individual copy
That's
of
funny, you
the
signed the
book.
NDA.
So
Yeah.
if I had leaked that, everyone would have known it was mine.
Yeah, you in particular.
Yes, in particular. Right?
If you'd leaked yours, because there was a scene we've talked about before that was
Yes,
inserted just to
if you
as a
want
joke
to,
for you.
if you don't know, have never heard about this, but if you want to see a legit official, the only official fan fiction that was ever allowed to be written
Yes.
about the Wheel of Time,
Mhm.
it is a deleted scene from Towers of Midnight that ended up in my copy of the beta read.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
There's a whole
That's
story
super
about it. Just
cool.
to
That's
troll me.
so
It was-
nice that
it
you
was
did
amazing.
that.
It was
Yeah.
amazing. There's a video out there about that. I'm sure if you are over on the Dusty Wheel channel, they know where the link is. But
Yep.
okay, so the reason I'm bringing up the beta read is in Towers of Midnight. I remember this happened. We only had about 2 weeks, and you can imagine trying to find all, as a fan, you're like, I want to help find any issue that there might be there.
Mhm.
And so you're scouring this before it goes out to the
Towers of
public.
Midnight was huge.
And I
too.
remember at times where I wouldn't make certain comments because I would see something that made sense to me. So I didn't put in the document, this is why it made sense to me.
Right.
And I remember Brandon had come to me after Towers of Midnight and he's like, why didn't you write why it made sense to you? And I'm like, well, it made sense to me. This was possible, so I didn't need to put in. He's like, well, just write everything you're thinking basically
Yeah.
into this beta document. So when A Memory of Light came around, I tried to do that a little bit more.
Mhm.
And there is a scene, and we'll talk about that scene here shortly. There's a scene in A Memory of Light, but I will not reveal just what scene. But there's a person in this scene, and this person says something that I thought was out of character.
Mhm.
I thought it was out of character so so strongly that I wrote a lot in the beta.
Well, I mean, they
document
must have
of
changed it,
how
obviously,
This
based on the
must be
feedback.
what was your plan, Brandon,
Mm.
because this would never, like, this is too obvious. I remember writing there, this is too obvious. Change this. Change this. And I didn't hear back.
I don't think I changed it though. I think
You
it
did
was
not change
only
it.
obvious to you.
You did not change it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
This is, I didn't know you
let's see
wouldn't.
what
This is the
This would be
issue. For
interesting.
those who are watching, you don't. It's not like Brandon read. He's like, this isn't like a letter back and forth between
Mm.
Brandon and his tens of beta readers, of every comment. There's not enough
This would
time
be
for that.
interesting.
So you would make comments, and it would either turn into
Changes or not. I would get the
yes.
document and I would.
It would either be changes or wouldn't be changes. And actually, you would go back and read it afterwards, looking for a change if it was made. And you did not make a change.
A lot of people who are beta reading, one of the things they don't understand is foreshadowing, when it needs to be obvious and when it doesn't, and what is obvious and what isn't. Beta readers tend to be a little off the mark on foreshadowing, particularly if it's someone like you who's really deeply into the lore. Something that seems obvious to do is actually easily missed. And I think time has proven that I'm right.
Time has proven
on this.
Strangely correct in this.
Yes.
I did not anticipate that this would be the case. So basically, I gave my feedback, and months went by. The book was being published, and the month before it was published,
they're good on the
December,
build-up.
It was
of
actually
the
I looked at the
story.
text I sent Brandon.
Oh yeah, it was December.
You'd invited me down on December 13th to take part in a Magic draft.
Okay,
If he
and I
describes what he
brought
has for
Taylor.
lunch, he'll be upset.
I don't know if Taylor's still over there. I brought Taylor and we had come down to play Magic. And I had said to you, hey, if you have time afterwards, when you had time in your life after a Magic draft, to go grab a bite to eat afterwards.
Yes.
So,
Oh my God, they're describing
what
lunch.
happened, everyone? December 13th, the night of December 13th, we had a Magic draft. Afterwards,
it was really late, so there weren't a lot of places open.
There were not. So we went to
IHOP.
Because that's where you go. You go to IHOP.
Come on.
Not.
How'd I call
I don't think I had. I'm trying to think back. It's hard to remember if I came with any motivation other than to just, wow, you finished the book. This is crazy.
It's done. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we went and sat down, and this is how I remember it. And so I will tell you this, and you can add texture to how you remember it. I sat down, Taylor and I sat down there, and we started talking about, this is the end of the series. It's coming out. And at some point you had looked at me and you said, I'll answer any question you have about the Wheel of Time.
Yep. And I knew there was a question burning because I had read that document. There are things that Matt is really interested in that only he picks up on.
We're getting
that I knew he wanted to ask me about.
Yes. And you can imagine if Brandon asks you, you can ask any question. There were a lot going through my head, but Brandon clearly knew the one I would ask him.
Yes.
So everyone, this is the question I asked Brandon.
Okay.
Well, let me.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Let me do the reveal.
Yes, go for it.
Because your question might reveal I want to talk through my philosophy on this.
Okay.
So this is the big reveal. You're okay with me doing this?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So I approached A Memory of Light and I sat down and I said, all right, what do all of the characters want? What is their ideal situation? Like if the book's going to end, what do each of them want as their ideal situation? And for most of them, it was pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
And with a lot of them, I had some big indications from Robert Jordan. Like, what does Rand need and want?
Well, I don't think
he
Egwene
wants to be left
to
alone
die
for a while.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's a good kind of foreshadowing of this. And so I asked the question, what does Lanfear want? What does Lanfear want? And my answer was Lanfear is screwed because no solution to this puzzle
ends in her happiness.
That is an obvious solution ends with her in a good situation. Because if the Dark One wins, she's screwed, right? She has been playing her own game. Everyone knows it. She's way down on the totem pole right now. Everyone hates her. Dark One wins. She is just it's a terrible situation.
And the dragon to be destroyed forever too. There'd be no
the good guys win. That's also terrible for her because they're going to hunt down the remaining Forsaken and they're going to, take them out, right? You don't leave Forsaken around. And if the good guys win, that means, they're stronger than the Dark One. There's no hope for you. So I'm like, well, this is, in my opinion, the best schemer, or at least my favorite schemer. They're all pretty good schemers.
The best.
But the best schemer of them all. What is her solution? And I realized before I sat down to write the book, what she needs is everyone to think she's dead, but the good guys to win. If all the other Forsaken get taken down and she's the only one and no one knows she's alive, the world is her oyster. She is suddenly one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful being alive. Nobody knows it. She can go into the shadows and do her thing. And so she kicks off. Really, we kicked some of this stuff off in the previous book, but it really, because these were all being written together as one. I realized what Lanfear wants is this, and how would she go about doing that? And so, the secret is, why don't you ask your question?
Yeah. So, I'll not.
Yeah.
By the way, watching chat is hilarious.
Yes.
Ask the question.
The comment I made to Brandon
in
the document, if you all remember the scene at the end of A Memory of Light, is Lanfear is messing with Perrin.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're in a place and a state where the following comment by Lanfear makes zero sense, which is she says basically, I'm going to count to 3. And at 3, we're both going to do something here, which didn't require Perrin at all. But Perrin thought he was necessary to this process because he was clearly being compelled, which he believes he breaks.
He believes he cannot be compelled. He's had evidence presented in these books that he can't be compelled in this way. Yep.
That's true. And I remember saying
evidence deliberately laid to make him think that. Yes.
And so I remember reading it, and I thought to myself, like, why would Lanfear ever be so obvious to Perrin in something like this? And I was one of those things where I was like, this is too obvious. If this is really happening, what I think is happening here, which honestly, if you know me, I wanted to happen, which was that Lanfear would survive. It should be hidden and more subtle. And so I remember thinking, I don't know what Brandon's going to do here, but you said, Matt, ask me a question. And my question was, is Lanfear alive?
Is Lanfear alive? And the answer was yes, Lanfear's alive.
The answer is yes.
Now,
how?
You've got to understand, like, I thought that that was more than just that line. That was pretty obvious. I thought her whole scheme of playing with Perrin was an intentional, like, I thought people would pick up on, like, this isn't almost not a caricature, but she's doing the expected thing. But she doesn't have the history with Perrin she has with Rand. Why would she be doing this? I thought I'd get called out on that, and I really didn't, at least not by the beta readers and things. And so the whole plot on her side was she needed to give something plausible that when it got back to Rand, if he lived, he would believe that this all happened. And so the whole idea of playing with Perrin and things like this was to give as credible a witness as she possibly could to her demise, so that there would be no question in the minds of the heroes if she lived. And then she also got the bonus of supporting Perrin to try to make sure that the good guys won.
Sure.
Right. Which she, she's doing. She's acting like, but she legit. She's like, we cannot have, with the dark one win. That I am.
Perrin
that's the
like
worst
the
outcome.
honest one, right?
Her goal was
everyone
always
trusts Perrin and his word, his honor, kind
of
thing.
All the Forsaken. Everyone has always asked, why do you love this Forsaken? It's because it's the only Forsaken that ever had the plan to take out.
She's hoping he'll just
not work for him.
But anyway, the whole plot with Perrin was calculated as a way to. So when the good guys asked, the most credible witness, basically, that in the books that I could come up with, was Perrin. And a lot of what's happening to him has been twisted. Some of it's happening in the world of dreams in ways that he thinks he's really expert in, and I take effort to show how expert he is. But he is no expert over Lanfear. He's just confident enough to believe that he's right when he's seeing things that just aren't happening, and he's being manipulated at every point.
That makes sense.
And she plays into that.
Lanfear has thousands of years of experience.
She plays so hard into it. But I love that because he has come to believe that he has mastered this place. And time and that this person
training montage,
that he could actually take out
Yes.
Forsaken, that they would be in such a position that he could do this, and he believes it 100%.
Yeah.
I will say though that
which is
they
well
were kind of
crafted, I
bumbling
think, over
idiots,
those-
some of
those
the
that
Forsaken
was
album.
my goal with this one. And so our end state is that indeed Lanfear is the most dangerous person alive. Next to Rand, she's probably the most powerful person alive. And nobody knows it, and she is so cool with that.
Yes.
And so I'll leave to your imaginations. This is canon. I went to Harriet and team and I pitched this idea to them. They all approved it. They've known about it all of these years. They approved us revealing it here.
They did.
This is not Brandon. This is straight up the way that I built the books. And
I
is
can't wait
straight
to
up
get back
canon.
and read this now when I get to the
so,
memory of like I'll probably
Lanfear's
forget
alive,
this
everyone.
by the time I get there.
So, yeah.
Sorry, I can finally. It's funny because Taylor's like, you gotta remember to enjoy this moment. And the reason why, so I have to share some really funny things that have happened around this, because this was my theory before December 13th happened. Because when Brandon said yes, I split my mind as a fan who has been behind the scenes and in front of the scenes doing the beta read to my theory is Lanfear is alive.
Right.
Before I understood that Brandon said Lanfear was alive. And so for the last 10 years, I've actually shared with fans my theory on this, because technically you never had to reveal this and it could always remain a theory.
No wand,
but
no words.
I'm sure there are some of my friends who now realize that maybe I was trolling them a little bit for a decade, but it was honestly, I was just so excited that this theory existed, and now that we can actually share that.
Yeah, and one of the things I did after we talked about this is I said to you, one of the reasons I'm telling you this is so that in however many years, when I finally get to reveal this secret, when Harriet says it's time, you can start talking about these things, I'll have had somebody there before the book came out who can add witness, and it's Taylor.
See, I don't even think
it
you
is
need
Taylor.
that, right? Like,
Taylor
Taylor
hadn't read any of the books at all. He was how old were you? It was 10 years ago. 13. He's a 13-year-old kid who's enjoying his pancakes, and he's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I was going to say, like,
they are going to reveal
not necessarily would I make a great witness
yes
to this particular mystery
yes
in the sense that everyone would believe that I would want it to be true.
Yes, everyone would believe it. You're one of the few people I could talk to about this because you picked up on it.
Yeah.
But I also do have communications. I actually wrote an email to Harriet that's in my thing, and I said, just so you know, I'm writing this out so that we have email confirmation, because once in a while fans will be like, oh, you're retconning that.
Yep.
This one was submerged enough in the text that I knew that if I didn't do some of these things, it might seem like
I'd like to see how many people are like
J.K. Rowling
like
likes to come back and be like, oh, I meant this all along. And you're like, sure. Yeah.
Like,
okay.
That's a good point.
We totally believe you. I wanted to make sure.
Taylor just posted in the chat, I am the key.
Yes. So this is the last secret that I've been hiding. The last big secret.
This is appropriate, everyone.
Yes.
Very appropriate that Lanfear is the last
biggest secret.
The last big secret. By the way, Taylor has really funny memories from this, because Brandon, obviously, he said yes at an IHOP. This IHOP was not empty. There were people sitting around us. And as soon as he said yes, I remember feeling some level of paranoia. Like, oh my gosh, everyone's going to know about this thing. And I looked over to Taylor and I was like, Lanfear who? And he's like, I don't know who you're talking about, Dad.
I hope my kids read Wheel of Time. I'm looking forward to when they're old enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if it's a series I could read through them.
And Taylor, this entire time, he's been so excited over his last decade. He's like, someday this is going to come out. And we would go to JordanCon. And so I have to share this. I sing a parody, a Wheel of Time parody, at JordanCon every year. And it's called Freak, based on Creep.
Right.
And it's about it's about the theory behind Asmodean's demise.
Right.
And how I was wrong about Asmodean and who killed Asmodean. And I changed the last stanza of that song a couple of times. And one I changed about 5 years ago. It goes, now it's all over, but one theory remains. She was too special and never so casual, because she was a freak. She was forsaken. What the hell was she doing there? Lanfear fooling everyone. May she live forever. And Taylor said, I can't believe you just sang this song. And I said, it's just fun. I'm having a little bit of fun throwing this out there. Well, I didn't know Brandon came to JordanCon like 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still
And I
talking
outed
about
you?
this. Yes, Brandon's like, I think Taylor, didn't you say Brandon mentioned my name?
Yeah.
Like Matt is one of the people that knows.
Mhm.
And Taylor came running to me at JordanCon. He's like, do you know that Brandon just told everyone that you know the answer to this final secret? He's like, maybe you should stop singing this song now to everyone and stop telling everyone about your theory. So just a funny little pieces of this
Funny.
story of things that were happening. But yes, Melinda just said, this explains so much about Matt. It does. If you don't know that I've loved the character Lanfear for this long, it's been
She's
a
a great character. When she
30-year love
comes in
affair for
like
the
book
character
2
of
as
Lanfear
Celine,
for me. So
great character.
yeah, she's been always one of my favorites. For you,
Yeah.
not so much from the Forsaken side.
I mean, I liked Lanfear. When I came to the books, though, Lanfear was kind of at an all-time low, shall we say?
sure. Yes.
Not just in what she'd achieved,
bad
but
books.
in how much she felt like herself.
Yeah.
And one of my goals was, I still love the dynamic between Rand, Lanfear, and Morden, Elin, however you want to say, Ishamael, however you want to go, like the classic sort of one that they actually leaned into in the television show, which is one of the things I like about the television show is they're leaning into, particularly with
I love
Ishamael,
like
right?
Michael Kramer's like voices.
He's leaning into this idea that they knew each other, they were friends,
So good.
and the personalities that they express. Like Ishamael, it's not the first book, but as the books progress, I really wanted to lean into that in my 3 books. It's one of my favorite relationship dynamics, and so kind of bringing Lanfear back as more as the Lanfear that she had been. And exploring Ishamael more, Elin, like in his actual persona of himself, more. That's really interesting to me.
Yep.
And so you can see in my 3 books, those are things that I explore.
Like the Lanfear when she meets up with Rand, or with Lews Therin,
right?
If you will, and they're having conversations about whether or not she ever loved him.
Yeah,
to me, it's
really interesting stuff.
Yes, it's really, really interesting.
That was very
emotional.
emotional.
Full circle back to
I really like that.
You think about the end of the Second Age, and you come back to these people that were so key, and they're all key to the end of this next age again, and talking about relationships they've had after thousands of years, if you will. So yeah, I think it's extremely interesting.
It's one of the most interesting parts about the Wheel of Time.
Sure, it is. Like if you think about
soul
the love there
before and the memories of
years.
that past life kind of intruding on the my present life. It's just really interesting. And so so yes, Lanfear is one of my favorites. If you're going to have me rank them, she's near the top. I just, Elin is my favorite. I really, something about him and the different incarnations of him through is really interested me. So
Okay, everybody, that was the main portion of the secret we want to talk about. But I do want to. I said secrets in the thumbnail I put for this because, well, a lot of the stories around this you probably hadn't heard, obviously. But I also wanted to talk about what I call a Memory of Light outline.
Yes, that's what the document is named.
So one of the notes, one of the documents in Robert Jordan's notes, in fact, you can find this document out there, is called the Memory of Light outline. But you want to explain to everybody what that
as meant? I remember. Now it's been years.
Yeah,
10 years.
As my recollection of it is, I'm like, oh, you have an outline when they first gave this to me. And they said to me, no, Robert Jordan didn't work from outlines. That's not exactly how he did it. And the document called Memory of Light outline was actually constructed by Team Jordan. It was not an outline that Robert Jordan prepared for me. It was instead them going through every bit of notes they could find and pulling anything that seemed the least bit relevant to a Memory of Light, putting them into one file, and then Alan tried to put them in order. And this is Alan Romanchuk, and Maria Simmons and Harriet. Those are Team Jordan, right? And so this a Memory of Light outline, as I understand, again, been a long time, but as I understand, this was not created by Robert Jordan. This was created by his team.
That's a good thing to know.
After he died, for me specifically.
It makes sense because one of the things that it
Mhm.
talks about is, and for those who are wondering what this is like, is it kind of has categories, and it's like these
Yeah.
people, this
Yeah.
thing that's happening, and then it would include kind of a summary of something, or
Yep.
and one of those
Mostly written by Alan. The summaries are written by Alan. And in places it includes things that they got as transcriptions on. So they were working on this before Robert Jordan died, because part of it, like they'll go ask him a question and he'll tell them and they'll transcribe it. And then they just put the transcription into the outline. And so a bunch of Q&A. I assume I'm thinking of the same one you're reading.
Pretty
That there's
interesting.
Q&A stuff
That's
in
gotta
there.
be so hard.
I'm not sure. I think
Piece all
you
that
got.
together and think
I
this
think you got
product
a
we
much
got
more.
in the
I got a
elaborate.
much more
Yes.
elaborate.
This
Okay.
one is more, feels like more summary items.
Okay.
About big things.
Then
if that
some of
makes
those
sense.
might be written by Robert Jordan.
So like
Yeah.
this is like I'll give you an example of one. Rand and company have surrounded Sheol. He takes Kalendor and Layman's sword to control the Dark One long enough to seal him up. Bring
Right.
up the boar
Okay.
and seal it. Kalendor
That's
is used to link Rand between the two access keys, one male, one female, and then parentheses female one melted when Rand cleansed the male
So-
half of the one power.
so the parentheses on that is written by Alan.
Okay.
That is a
We had the
piece they
Choden
found
Claw.
from a previous notes file for one
Gotcha.
of the old books before book 9, I guess, right? Where Robert Jordan, like when fans would say, do you have the ending written down? I think he's talking about this,
Gotcha.
that he went and wrote it into his notes. So he has the ending as he imagines it at that point. This is probably written like at the book 6 period.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna pause you for a second. Yeah, like the ending of the Wheel of Time, like the ending of the series when he closes the bore and he melds the Dark One back into the wheel, like awesome, well done. And like to say Brandon could do that and like just off notes, it's pretty impressive.
Something like that, right? And they're finding these things and slicing them out and putting. So in that case, and then they're adding notes and
To help out, like,
to help
hey,
me to remind.
how are they going to have the two access
How are they going to
keys?
have the access keys if one of them was destroyed?
And the statue itself
Yeah.
was
The
destroyed.
whole thing's destroyed. Yeah,
so-
book 9, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yes.
was Winter's
Yeah,
Heart.
book 9.
No,
No.
I thought it was. Well, I don't want to. Yeah, I'm sure somebody in chat will be like, no, it's book 10.
But yeah, like
So there's be stuff like that. So I wanted everyone to understand that
Heart.
the things we're talking about isn't necessarily like the last thing
If you guys know,
that
comment
was
down below.
right.
that was like written. This is exactly how it has to happen. A lot of these things were compiled of things that Robert Jordan had imagined would happen, but details had already changed that he had written.
And there's sometimes where there's 2 options or 3 options. He's like, I might do this, and things like that. What you've got to understand is part of my job was sifting through all of this and figuring out how to make the story out of it that both cued as closely to his vision as was reasonable, but also made a good story and fulfilled on all the arcs that were happening.
That's one thing I want to comment to. Like, that's got to be like the ultimate fan dream, where say like you're reading a story that you absolutely love, because Brandon was a massive fan of the Wheel of Time, and then to go on and get to finish that story. I don't think how many people ever are going to do that in their lifetime. So that's absolutely amazing too, just to think about. And I think he really finished it extremely well.
And I remember Harriet sitting me down and saying, Robert Jordan, when he wrote this, he always took chances and changed big things he was planning in every book he wrote because it was for the good of the story. She said, you need to take big chances. You need to be willing to change things, and you need to be willing to make the most fulfilling story possible.
How badass is Harriet,
those were
though?
things that she told me when I started working on this project. Because at first I was trying to hew too close. Like I tried to insert one of the scenes that he'd written as is. When I say written, it was like really just almost bullet points. And she's like, no, that's not how this goes. This is not how, I'm not expecting you to try to preserve every word of Robert Jordan. I expect you to preserve the soul of the Wheel of Time the best you can.
And I remember you talking
was
a
a
lot
great
about this
steward.
because the Avienda scene
Yes.
from Towers of Midnight,
Yes.
right, where she goes back through and sees basically what seems like the future.
Yes.
And that this was something, if I remember correctly,
I pitched
You
this,
pitched that,
and they were uncertain about that one. I pitched
That's
a bunch
cool.
of
I like
things.
that scene.
Some of them, like for instance, the whole thing with Bao. Just
like 4 kids.
in the
I
end,
think, at the end
execution
there.
didn't work. Nothing like all the things that There's some that we just killed in the idea stage, right? But some of them they were uncertain about. I tried out and they worked. Avienda worked. Like after I wrote that, like Team Jordan's like, this is a showpiece scene in the book.
Yeah.
Nice work. Some of them they're like, no, this probably needs to go. And you've seen all of those at this point. The things that the
great character.
Oh, I want to ask you about one of those.
Probably my favorite of.
Have we seen the one
the
bridal wreath scene?
I don't. Oh, have we said I don't know if we've seen the bridal wreath.
That's that one. I remember I went through an old interview.
True.
You had done an interview with Dragonmount, I think, and you talked about how
I love the bridal wreath scene. It's real short.
Do you think we'll ever see that out there someday?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure we will.
Okay, so
but the bridal wreath scene was actually cut for tone reasons, not for it happened in my mind off screen. It was happening at the beginning of A Memory of Light during this fall of
I can't remember when it happens. Yeah, when you were thinking about
it's Talmanes, right, where he's like almost getting killed and he's fighting
because it was going to happen right before.
It's happening during that. It's interspersed. Like we're doing our quick cuts that I like to do near the end, and we're cutting from Talmanes nearly dying to a Miradral to, hey, look at what this thing that I'm weaving in the wreath means for me. Yeah. And I didn't write them that way, right? I wrote them by viewpoint and then wove them together. And after I wove them together, Harry's like, "You were really going to cut from this to this?" I'm like, "No, we can't cut from that to that."
Sorry, people are begging. Can you explain the bridal wreath scene?
I don't know the hell they're talking about.
That was.
I mean, you need a bridal wreath that you weave when your Aiel. You weave a wreath.
This is for like Rand, Avienda,
Min, Elaine, and Avienda are like, we got to get him a bridal wreath. That's like tradition.
I feel like Avienda was
and so they all go and they get different plants that represent them to weave together into a wreath made by the three of them. And so they're all the fun of it is like, here's what my plant is, and this is why we're sticking it in. It's got lots of thorns. Lots of them have thorns.
Which is why coming off the Talmanes scene might have not worked.
It just did not work.
Now the reason I've set this all up, I want to describe this because I want to ask you about one of these pieces from the A Memory of Light outline. That will maybe be a surprise or this isn't necessarily secret, but hasn't been talked about. There's two sections that talk about Egwene, everyone, in this document. One is it's kind of over a section like Egwene and Gawain, and in a subsection of that says Egwene becomes pregnant. And then there's a section about the last battle that says Egwene is nearly killed and is saved by Aegonen.
If you guys don't like it, I don't like Egwene.
You got asked a question about Egwene's death.
Yes.
I want to read the answer you gave from a fan back in the day, and then I want to talk about this idea of the choices you made about Egwene.
Yes.
So in answering a question about Egwene's death, you said, it is never my intention to just kill off a character for shock value. And I can assume that RJ felt the same way from what I've read and studied. That said, the answer to your question comes down to believing that almost every character sees themselves as the hero of their own story. Even if you know they are eventually going to die, you usually don't want to write it that way. The exception is for tragic characters where the foreshadowing of their impending demise is a natural consequence of their bad choices. In the case of a protagonist being lost, the proper course, in my eyes, is to build them up in exactly the same way that you would build up everyone else, maybe even more. You must make them live before they can die. Getting back to what I said at the start, I never kill off characters. I allow characters to take the risks they demand and even sacrifice themselves, if they demand, for the good of the goals they want to achieve. Again, I can only assume RJ had a similar philosophy from what I've read. I haven't answered yet who decided that particular character you mentioned should die, because in the end, it was the character's choice and not ours. My job is not to coddle them, but to make certain their death is a good one. And if I failed in that regard, I apologize. So talk to us about Egwene and her character arc and what it was that you felt kind of demanded how that ended.
Okay, before we get in, I want to talk about I really don't like Egwene. I think actually Egwene is that perfect character that shows you that you can be a bad person, like a horrible person, but still be on the right side of history. And like just because you're fighting for the good guys doesn't mean you're a great person. So I'm actually interested to hear this.
So there's a couple of pieces in this. One of the big kind of powwows we had that I had with Team Jordan was sitting down and the group of us saying, all right, what are the casualties? Again, this isn't to kill off people for shock value or anything, but say, is this story going to have casualties? What are the appropriate ones? What are the character arcs and things like this? And we spent a long time talking. And one of the things we were pretty sure on is that there needed to be heroic sacrifices.
Yeah.
At the last battle. And if there weren't, that the story just would lack the potency that we want.
Yeah.
And so, but we also knew that certain characters we just, we had to leave at the ending. Robert Jordan had decided he had actually written scenes for them, right? And things like that. And we talked about a lot of characters, not just what I would call the main four, the main five, right? And some casualties were decided upon that weren't in the notes. I would say there's a number of them
Swans
either the fate was left uncertain or Robert Jordan had said something minor about them. Egwene was one of them. We decided, where is Egwene's arc really going? And we looked at, Amerlin's in the past, and we looked at, the Battle Aja, and we looked at who's going to be like the big fiery fighting force, because Rand's not there. Rand's off dueling realities. And we just decided, number one, Robert Jordan had said that somewhere in there he wanted Gowan to die. And we're like, okay, you lose your warder, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Number two, Battle Aja, where has, there's two places we could have taken Egwene. One is Amberlin, who rules for, 100 years in peace and during a new age. And that's kind of what I think everyone expected for Egwene. And the other one was key person that without the last battle falls apart. And we went that direction and decided that, Egwene is our big casualty.
I'm glad they did that because if you think about the Wheel of Time and you think about if Egwene did live and she would live for hundreds of years, how much of a dick she was and how messed up, because she's such a manipulator, and just how monstrous the Aes Sedai would have been if she did actually survive. So no, I'm kind of glad they killed her off. So
Egwene's the kick to the stomach that we're going to do. And this was decided by Team Jordan. I won't say who in Team Jordan pitched this specific one. We all kind of pitched different things that we felt were appropriate. This one I feel very strongly is very appropriate. I feel it's appropriate to her character. Where's she going? Her arc, her place in the story. Like, one of my themes I wanted for Memory of Light is you can't go through an ensemble book series and then have Rand be the only one that matters. I think one of the points of the Wheel of Time as a series is, it starts off as a hero's journey about Rand. Mm-hmm. And by the end, it's a story of a world and all the people at the turning point. And
we don't know the name
if there isn't somebody who all the characters aren't really relevant in some way, but if there isn't somebody who's, almost as relevant as Rand, then we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And so we made this call. And so this is a call that wasn't Robert Jordan. This was us.
Sure.
Good call.
I'm going to ask everyone in Dusty Wheel chat.
Yes.
Do you agree with the call that Egwene should have died?
Oh, you should do a poll. Can you do a poll?
I'm throwing a poll up.
Let's vote on that poll, guys.
So I'll be interested to see what at least those that are watching over here in the Dusty Wheel are asking about.
And
Becky, do you mind grabbing just a little bit more water? Sorry.
I'm not trying to be rude.
Okay, so everyone, those are some of the things I wanted to cover. I don't want to make this completely about only the things that we wanted to talk about. A lot of you submitted questions.
Yeah,
we're going to start to get to some of those for the next bit here. So maybe I'll ask this one. This is a good crossover kind of question between your own audience. This is from Marcus de Jure, or I don't know how to pronounce that last part, but how does post Memory of Light Rand stack up to a shard in terms of power?
I imagine that in Rand's realm, he is as powerful or maybe more. That's my interpretation.
Okay.
Like, if he is as I imagine, the direct manifestation of the pattern and what he wills happens. This is more powerful than the shard because there's no balancing factor to him. I don't know if he is that powerful, but in my imagination, that's what Rand is. What he basically can imagine something and it occurs.
So I guess like that's I mean, for those who don't know what shards are, I mean, if you probably do if you've read Brandon Sanderson, but shards are like pieces of divinity that are kept within a human body or a body, and then are essentially a source of that power. So in Brandon's Cosmere, so I guess so. Rand is, I guess, equal to those type of gods, which is sweet. I mean, Rand. I think Rand, even when he was the Dragon Reborn, was as powerful as a god.
Which
So
is
makes sense. Where he
should
says
be
he's stronger than a
terrifyingly
shard.
powerful, but fortunately, he just wants to see the world, and
not so terrifying
and,
at the moment.
As each of his women finish with the jobs that they have for themselves and join him, it'll be the four of them seeing the world.
There you go.
There are duties
That's
that the
one thing I
others,
want to know. Like, would the women join him after? And like, it sounds like yes.
Elaine takes the longest in my mind before she joins up.
So Rand, is it in your mind that Rand has a chance to raise children?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sees and raises
I
children.
love that.
Oh yeah.
That's what I pictured in my head,
like,
that he went and lived a life.
I imagine
with Min and
that, and this is not canon.
Yeah, there you go.
I imagine that what happens is the three books with Matt and Perrin happen, and that involves Lanfear in some way.
Oh, okay.
And Shanshan, and mostly it's all about all the problems in the Shanshan Empire, and things like that. And conflicts between the two continents.
It's an interesting idea that I hadn't actually gone there with Lanfear, that she might go back and maybe decide to situate herself with the Shanshan.
Yeah,
oh.
I imagine she's involved, and I imagine that Rand makes a cameo, but it is Rand in a shack somewhere that you don't expect and hanging out with his kids.
Okay.
And
cool.
That's all you get from Rand is maybe some wise words. Maybe it's just intel, right? Maybe it's just, World of Dreams. You get to have a chat with Rand. Rand takes on kind of a almost mythological sort of, you'll get some advice from Rand at some point, but that's what I imagine.
Because it's not just Rand
would
too, right?
happen
It's like
in
Rand
those three
and like
books
Luce
if they ever had gotten written.
Cool.
Well, I guess they became one.
Okay, now
They
you've
became
mentioned this
one
one.
in
This
the
was
end,
from
right?
Flash Rogan.
Mhm.
You've mentioned the Padden Fane aspect of.
Oh yeah,
that
was probably the weak
you wish
part
maybe
of
it
this
would
whole
have put a little
story.
bit more.
I wish
time into that
I'd
one.
found some. Yeah, Padden Fane was a tough nut to crack. Mm-hmm.
Have you thought since then? Oh, this is maybe where I should have taken it or could have taken it. Has anything come up like that?
I feel like the way I took it worked.
Yeah.
It worked, but it wasn't satisfying.
Confrontation between him and Matt is the way to go, as the kind of physical manifestation of the darkness that Matt gave up. I think that's a good thematic sort of thing.
Yeah.
But there maybe needs to be more interaction between Padden Fane and Matt, and a little bit more Padden Fane and a little less Shadar Logoth in that interaction, so that there's the personal side to Padden Fane.
Yeah.
A
little bit more build up to that conflict.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
build out
That got
conflict
lost
more than
big
it was.
time.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's more a matter of fleshing out what's there. I still think that what's there, and this is good because I feel like I can say, look, add it in your head, flesh it out. The ending, I think, is the right ending, but needs a little bit more. We need that's the thing. This book became 3. It could have been 4. It could have been 5, right?
Right.
Where this is the problem Robert Jordan ran into when telling this story is, and so
Well, I don't know if you know my theory about that is that that he actually, that the evil that has infected him has actually infected the ground. The way that you wrote it was suggestive that while the blight might be gone, that this evil has now infected a new place, and it remains in some form or fashion to be stirred up again in the future. So
okay,
that's my take on it.
Shale Ghoul.
By the way, do you agree with the call that Egwene should have died at least at the Dusty Wheel,
Mhm.
618 of them voted, and 90% agree with the call. So
Mm.
there you go.
Heck yeah.
How about this question? You've brought this up before, that you didn't have a spot to really bring in that reunion.
Yeah.
Rand, Matt, and Perrin.
I might
there
have
a
looked
place?
harder. Where is it though? Right? Like where the problem is Perrin. Like Perrin's been off from them so much.
Yeah.
Like where do we make it happen?
One thing I'm gonna say, like, pop into, like, with Perrin, like, Perrin became so boring in, like, the last few books of the series. Like, he stopped being like Perrin and became like Fail's husband. So,
Yeah. I could have maybe made it happen in a dream. I maybe could have squeezed it in somewhere.
like
I don't know.
Matt's
If
and
you
Rand's
didn't have to
reunion
hold
when,
to the
like, he approaches the
what
daughter
was
of the
going
Nine
on at the
Moons,
time.
and
Yeah.
did you have a place?
just
if-
Matt,
just
like,
take
at the end,
away
it's just
the-
Rand, like,
the facts of the
laughing,
plot
like, it's
itself.
Oh yeah.
great.
I
Where
mean,
would you have put that?
the
love
same
that.
scene
Love
where
that
Matt
reunion.
catches a badger, right? Like that's the bright scene. To have Perrin, be there with them. Yeah. It's either that or honestly, and this is there's no structure. I
Like
think
that.
the ending is better as it is.
Yeah.
But there is a hypothetical ending where the three of them meet up again in the epilogue. Right? Because it's been so long since they broke apart, and then I don't know.
It kind of takes away the Rand.
It takes away the
being
Rand thing,
unknown,
and
yeah.
Robert Jordan had written those scenes,
Yeah.
and so
Mhm.
interjecting something. But you could maybe have
Put him in a
had
good place.
some sort of, and maybe he would have found a way to do this. The ending of the third Nolan Batman film,
Yes.
where it's
Yeah.
just like at a cafe in Paris, and they look across
Yeah.
and they nod.
Right.
Like you could maybe have worked in something like that, right? Where.
Do you think they're still connected in as they were, or do you think
Well,
that
no, the
that's
I don't
Ta'Veren
think
broke
they
them.
are.
the Ta'Veren nature has kind of?
I think the
Has
Ta'Veren
gone,
nature is.
ended.
I think it's
Yeah.
gone. This is not canon. I think it is gone. I think Rand would not be able to have the ending Robert Jordan wants for him if that were still there. Maybe Perrin and Matt. Yeah. But
That's what it needed if
I
he's gonna
think
be
it
married
would
to the
be
daughter of the
cool
Nine
if
Moons.
the sequel
He's gonna
series
need
would
some
happen
luck.
if it's told from their viewpoints. But there's somebody else that's Ta'Veren that they need to deal with now, because it's not them anymore. Someone else is pulling them into, maybe Tuon's Ta'Veren, and you just got to deal with the fact that that's happening. Like it would be more interesting for Matt and Perrin to have to deal with a Ta'Veren.
Yeah.
At this point.
Right.
So, yeah.
Do you like the idea that what Avienda sees is the deep, deep past into previous turnings or mirror world kind of turnings?
Yeah.
Or do you like the idea that it's the?
For me, it's a
future?
potential future.
Yeah.
But it's the Wheel of Time. I don't think that future happens.
Okay.
Yeah, that
and
gets relived,
so
I think. And that's what I thought.
I think that the warning makes sure that it doesn't, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so I'm totally fine with that being the deep, deep past in people's philosophies. A mirror world, like the point is the warning to let's make sure this doesn't happen, and it doesn't because the warning did happen. So that future doesn't exist, but the way the Wheel of Time mechanics work, that future existed somewhere,
right,
at some point. So
I like it. Koala said they see each other at IHOP.
Yes,
nod at each other.
They see each other at IHOP. It's too late. The cafe in Paris isn't open. They nod at each other. Matt's got a badger under his chair that he kicks, and they go their separate ways.
Okay, so here is a question from Takaran Riyadh. They asked, as a fan, what remaining unanswered Wheel of Time mystery do you wish had an answer?
I don't mind the big ones we've talked about not having answers. I would like to know specifically why, in the sequel series, Perrin felt like he had to go kill Matt. Okay. I assume it's Matt. Go kill a friend, right?
Okay.
Doesn't say Matt,
right?
But it's a very sort of Perrin thing. He's like, man, I gotta go kill a friend. And
what are they talking about right
know
now?
Why a little bit more?
I'd like to know why and who that is. Like, I assume it's Matt. I assume that it has to do with the fact that the the husband of the emperor of the Shanshan is it's a big deal. You can't kill the empress, so you've been assigned to, because they're making like they're gonna come back and take out Randland, and that's bad. And
Am I
there's
missing
some
something?
sort of indication to Perrin that Matt is kind of behind it, or that his luck or whatever is making it so that they can't there's some conflict there. But maybe he never intended, maybe he's faking us out and been like, because the two lines that we have from that sequel series are Perrin sailing to Shanshan thinking about how he's got to go kill a friend, and Matt in a gutter
they're talking about,
somewhere
like, sequel series
moaning that he's gambled it all away. And that's our future for Perrin and Matt.
I love it.
And it would be nice to have had answers on that.
It wasn't
but
even
let's
super
point out,
clear.
no, I'm not going to write them. I will do this non-facetiously.
It's like one thing, like it's not even super clear, like that Perrin becomes king, like after the series, and because like it has to be like, oh, Davram Bashir died, but someone else died, so Davram Bashir became king, and then now Fail. So it's just like through Fail, Perrin becomes king, right?
I could joke about it, but no, I am not going to write those books.
I know you've answered that one before, but yes.
Just in case people are wondering, I don't think that is enough to go on to create something that I would feel is accurate to Robert Jordan's vision for me. I'm not in charge of this. And so if Harriet or her family decides that this is something they want to have written, great.
Sure.
I think that for me, that would just be a step too far.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Would you want a sequel series like of Matt and Perrin? I don't know if I would. I don't think I would like that. Like, Rand is my favorite character in the Wheel of Time, and then Nynaeve. And I think to have just a sequel series about like Matt and Perrin, and like I know who it's hard to root for them because Perrin's boring, I think. And like Matt, like I really like Matt, but I don't want to root for him because then it would be like rooting for Tuon. So I don't like Tuon either. So it's like I kind of just want neither of them to win.
And I don't even know that those books are a step too far. Just for me, it's a step too far. If I were ever going to write something more in the Wheel of Time, it would have been the prequel book about Tam.
100%, Matt. Yeah, like things need to know when they end, and Watt is over. Leave it at that. I 100% agree. Like, I don't want a sequel series. They don't need it. And yeah, like there's a few people saying that.
But even that,
don't do another
at
one.
the end of the day, I'm like, no, I don't think, I know how personally Robert Jordan views Tam, Tam, and I just didn't want to touch that. I was given the ring and I gave it back. And so, no, it's not saying it will never happen. I don't get to choose that, but
I hear you have some things you're writing on your own. So
I am writing things on my own. I do miss the Wheel of Time characters.
Sure.
But I like the ending. I think it's a good ending. I like that it has an ending.
Yep. I read it again before this, and I still get chills. I get chills reading those final chapters. It just
there was neither beginning or end to the turning of the Wheel of Time. But this
I'm going to answer this question with something, and then I'm going to have you add to it. Divarap asked, "How was the day you finished writing A Memory of Light?" And I pulled this stance on August 1st, 2012. Brandon Sanderson's blog. He wrote, "Today I got up and I did not have a Wheel of Time book to work on." And it said, Robert Jordan was a great man and was the single greatest influence on my development as a writer. What I have done these last 5 years has been an attempt, a sometimes flawed but always earnest attempt to show my appreciation. This entire genre owes him an enormous...
Sorry, I'm going to pause it here. If there was a WoW book, I would totally want about something totally different, like a book about this Shanshan. Yeah. Well, I guess that they were kind of saying that, though, Matt, that it would be set on like Shanshan and the wars after.
My debt to him and to Harriet is greatest of all. Mr. Jordan, may you rest in the light. Everyone else, take a breath and get ready for the end. May you find his final words as satisfying to read as I did when I first picked them up 5 years ago. The very last scene is his, touched very little by me, as are significant chunks of the ending at large. I have achieved my goal in writing the books so that they pointed towards this ending, he wrote, allowing us to include his words with as little alteration as possible. Once again, thank you. May you always find water and shade.
There we are. That's
was
my
pretty.
answer. That's a good answer.
That is your answer. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Looking back at that, what memories, I guess, of Light do you have about that entire process? Like, what are your most fond memories?
My most fond memory is arriving for the first time at Harriet's house, sitting down in what I didn't know was Robert Jordan's chair and reading the ending.
Yeah.
That's a very fond memory. Every time I visit Charleston, I'm very fond of those stand out as highlights. Realizing that I had a lot of room to do what I felt needed to be done.
Yeah.
And realizing that Harriet wanted me to do it. Like that's the most remarkable thing about this
series.
is that the advantage that we all got by having Harriet in charge of this is that she is one of the best editors in the business and knows books inside and out. And it very easily could have turned into several disasters if it hadn't been Harriet in charge.
This is a great point that Brandon made, because like if you think about if this was written like now, 10 years like later, and with like the current editing, like with just kind of the way like some of the politics are, and like how like books have to be a certain way and appeal to a certain type of demographic. I'm kind of glad that this was done 10 years ago and not now, because I don't think it would have been done the way we would have wanted.
One of which being playing it so safe that the ending is bland, right? One of it is hiring a ghostwriter who doesn't know the lore really well, who is able to execute on the outline given, but gives you something that just feels like an outline in book form.
Yeah.
Right. A disaster of too many cooks trying to get in that kitchen. You see this in Hollywood with different adaptations they do all the time.
Yep.
And I feel like I saw that in The Rings of Power, right? Everybody's vision for what they want this to be comes in, and that could have happened with this, and it didn't. Harriet said, "You're a writer, Brandon, do your best. And then I'm an editor. I will do my best. And together we will make a book or three that really work." And that was remarkable, right?
When you tell us the story about that she says take risks, that is that piece of it, because again, I know there were fans at the time that were like, oh, I can tell Brandon came up with this, and then sometimes you'd be like, actually, that was Robert Jordan. I did come up with this other thing, but that one thing was Robert Jordan that came up with that. But I
my favorite one is they're like, oh, I can tell Brandon's naming the chapters now. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I'm like, Harriet named all the chapters in all the previous ones, and she named all the chapters in mine.
But Brandon was doing it.
Yes. Well, maybe not all the chapters. She named the vast majority of the chapters. Yeah. I think there were some names came up, but
that's funny.
Like this is but they do change a little bit when I take over.
Yeah.
For sure,
but
they had to have.
Realizing that I got to craft works of art, not products, was a really big moment for me.
That's huge.
And I will always cherish that experience because I have so far never in my life had to create a product. That probably, I mean, that's a big part of why when Wizards of the Coast came in and said, "Do you want to write a story?" And I said, "Yes, but it has to be my story. I get to decide, and I have to do it for free because I don't want to be creating a product. I want to be creating a story."
That's a really good point, because this is the thing that always bugs me with like adaptations too. Like, and this is kind of always it's present right now with like The Witcher. You're seeing it how some of that come out that the screenwriters want to rewrite Andrzej Sapkowski's work, and they don't want to honor the text, and they don't think it's good. And the screenwriters in that show think they're better than or know more than Andrew Sapkowski. It's like you literally have the easiest job. Like, it's already written for you. You have to translate it from point A to point B. Like, how dare you, think you can write better than the person who wrote that series. And I'm so glad, like, Brandon, he was given the leeway to take risks and write this story. And I think like I said, he was such a great steward of this text and this series, and they couldn't have picked someone
I
better to
love
finish
that.
with.
I loved being able to do things like Veins of Gold, right? Do some of this stuff, particularly with Rand and Perrin, that I had been wanting to see in the books, and that I get to take over and be like, wow, I get to do this. I mean, stuff with Androl, where I'm like, ooh, I get to play with gateways. All right, here's my character.
Androl is cool, but
To
you can
just
tell he
play
was a
with
Brandon
gateways
character.
however
Such
I
a
want
Brandon
to.
character.
These are all really cherished experiences. The way the fandom treated me. You know, my first time at Dragon Con in a giant hall full of people, where Jen's like, all right, here's our guy, he's gonna write our book for us, and being kind of presented to the community for the first time. All of those experiences were wonderful.
There was a certain
Real-time fan base is
transparency to
great.
your process too, and maybe that came from. I wonder if that was also reflective of the
Like
fact
they're
that
really
you
good
knew
at, like,
you were creating
no
something. It wasn't just a
spoilers,
product.
like, don't give any
And so
spoilers away, which is fantastic.
The piece of art that you were creating, you cared about it differently, and the way you interfaced with the fandom, I think, was unique. I think we were all surprised how much you. I mean, there's Twitter threads where you're like talking back and forth with fans about rationale of why you see something one way as you were preparing for the books,
Right?
And I think that was unexpected. And I think that in the end, there was a sincerity that fans believed that you had, and so went along with this idea that you were creating something other than a product. So I think that those things matched, I think, for fans in a way that, I generally, I was there with all the fans. There was obviously fans that didn't like what you produced.
That is totally fine. Still, there's still going to be people who pick it up and like, wow, this does not work for me as my ending.
But generally speaking, when I see fans talk about it, they love the books now, and no one really. You just don't see a lot of people like, other than they'll bring up Matt or something.
Yes.
But generally speaking, they're like,
it's,
oh,
like, it's
I love these books. So yeah, I think you succeeded that way. So congratulations in doing that. I did want to point out to those that are watching, I'll be speaking with Harriet and Maria on Sunday. Actually,
that'd be cool. I might have to watch that. I might not stream it, but I'll probably watch. Maybe I'll film like just a reaction.
Them, along with other fans, and we'll be talking more about our memories of Light, basically, as fans. So I'm going to ask you just some, maybe this one's a little bit silly. This is from, these names are so hard, everybody. This is from Ikamalo, whatever. What's the funniest bit from RJ's notes? Any book, assuming you had to access all notes that didn't make the books?
Boy.
Are there funny things from his notes?
Yeah, but oh man, like they're the ones I bring up all the time. I'm sure there are other ones. It's been 12 years longer. It's been since 2007. So
it's been a while.
It's been a while. But you know, like I always go back to talking to them being like, do I really have to spank one of the Forsaken? And they're like, well, it's in here. I'm like,
there was a lot of spanking in that series.
And you know, like,
do I really have to spank one of the Forsaken?
Yes. Do I really have to spank one of the Forsaken?
It's a great line.
Yeah. You know, I've talked about
that was weird.
Some of the stuff, like the Chodian Call is another. I'm like,
the Chodian Call.
When I first read that, I'm like, did I miss something? I went back to the books. I'm like, what did I miss? And they're like, oh no, this is from an earlier thing.
Yeah,
it's before he decided to. I'm like, oh, okay. No, but Alan had his note there, so I didn't panic too much about it. But you know, it's like, well, maybe we missed. Maybe there. No, it's just, you know.
Did I really have to spank a Forsaken?
Do I really?
That's all you have to really say.
Forsaken. Yeah.
Do you? Is there something you wish you could go back and retcon out of the 3 books?
I mean, I've said before, Pad and Fane.
Yeah.
I don't think I would retcon Matt. Right? Like, I think Matt is an artifact of me taking up the books, and Monkey's Paw. My argument is Matt is discombobulated from events happening at the end of book 11. And it takes him a while to find himself. And when he finds himself, he just can't ever quite be the same again.
Yeah.
That I would actually, I would take out the spanking.
The spanking is the retcon.
That I would honestly do that. I've said it before.
That was weird.
You'll find it in the things. I would I would find a different way.
Okay.
Doesn't match the way that I approach storytelling.
Raging Plankton asked, what would you have done differently looking back on Wheel of Time using your current knowledge and experience? Is narrative-wise, preparation, process of writing, is there something that would have been different?
Would have been different. I mean, if I'd known it had to be 3 books, like I mostly knew, was like 90% sure.
Yeah.
That would have helped me solve some things, particularly timeline issues. And I would have put the full weight of my team on it, right? Like having my team who's very good at understanding how I do continuity and timelines. Like one of the biggest kind of structural problems is timeline issues across all the timelines for this, because it was written as one book and things like that. I would it's too late for this. I'm not connected enough just with the material.
Yeah.
But I still kind of wish that there were a single volume, A Memory of Light, that could balance, because Veins of Gold and Perrin's some of Perrin's climax stuff could happen at the same time, like not just chronologically but narratively, and I think that would be really powerful. So
yeah, like one thing I think if it was me that I would kind of want them to go back would be like the court scene in Towers of Midnight. It was just boring. I don't think it added too much. It was just really long-winded and drawn out.
Maybe
but,
those are things I do different. I don't know. This is monkey's paw sort of stuff where you're like, I think it turned out all right. I don't know that I want to fiddle with it.
Yeah,
sort of stuff.
It makes sense that you would look at it and say, I know that's someone's come up, and that'll probably stick with you forever, which is the timeline issues, right?
Oh, I got another one.
Yeah.
I would start putting Bayo in, but Gathering Storm, because if I can get a few scenes of him in, then I can maybe pull off this whole thing with the East and stuff like that. That said, one of the reasons we cut it is it does feel like a super huge surprise when he just comes out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
And we get to feel like the characters felt, where it's just like, oh dear, he's here with an enormous army. What do we do?
Yeah.
And there is something to be said for that. So
I would have liked a little more there too.
I didn't actually, because he had always been this mystery because of Paimon and all the things that happened with that. That one didn't bother me as much. Like you said, if you started building it in, it might have felt like
it might have. It might have made them worse rather than better,
right?
Because it's like everyone's like, "Where's Demandred?" Well,
let me tell you.
Here it is. It actually works really well. So maybe rather than that one, the Cleansing of the Ways. Like if I could get that in as canon, if I were the writer I am now, I think you can read the Cleansing of the Ways scenes and they read just much better. I went back and revised those a few years ago before we released them, and I went back and I'm like, wow, I did not have the skill. I did not understand the ways, and I was able to revise them in a way that it really, I feel, read really well and worked really well. And maybe the Cleansing of the Ways would have made it into the book.
Okay,
so
that's a good one. I'm going to mispronounce these names. Sorry, everybody. Hector Portillo asked, would Adolin, is that right? Adolin. Would Adolin have been able to cheer up Darth Rand?
It's a bit above Adolin's pay grade. It depends on how good of friends they've become over the years. Okay. If Adolin's had time to become friends with him, then he would have been able to help a little.
That's a great question. T. Reese 381 asked, is there anything in A Memory of Light from Robert Jordan's notes that Brandon would have written differently without them? In other words, were there things where you were like, I'm going to go this way, and then you were like, oh, he really wanted it to go X way?
Oh, yeah. That's an excellent question. It's a really good question, because I'm sure there would have been. But at the same time, the notes are so, I mean,
were they just so part of the beginning of the process?
They're so part of the beginning, right? And beyond that, they have a really light hand through most of it. You guys have read this, this document. You can see that it's, there's not a lot of really strict things to it. right?
Yeah, he does a lot of. It's not like the entire book
Mhm.
are all in the notes.
Yes.
There's things that are never there that are
Mhm.
some of the best parts of the books that he ends up writing.
And so what are the things that I would have approached I bet a bunch of things differently, and I'm glad I had the notes I did so that I didn't approach them that way. And you can see the places where I felt like something needed to be changed. For instance, I've said before, like the siege of the White Tower, right? I
That was so good.
split up a bunch of those scenes, and I tweaked so that it became what I felt was a really dynamic arc for that. And so, Egwene's punishments there and things like that. So yeah.
Okay.
I had the power to do whatever I felt was necessary for the ending. And there are no parts where I'm like, oh, I wish I had done this. I did everything that I felt was appropriate. And Robert Jordan's directions were like just completely integral to how I was viewing that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I can imagine if you did not have them right at the beginning of the process and you were tasked to start kind of coming up with something, you probably would have had more.
But I had the notes in hand when I did my big reread, right?
Right. So you were already kind of
I was already aware of where it's going.
That's what you said. One of the first things you did when you asked, you said you wanted to read the ending, right?
Yes.
So you already kind of were pre-biased in your mind of like, this is how he wants to get there.
This is how we're ending, right? This is where we're going. And so that's okay. That's how I approach the whole process.
It is really sad though that Robert Jordan couldn't finish the series.
This one's for me apparently. Question: have there ever been any conversations at any level regarding you playing your character namesake when Towers of Midnight eventually adapted to the show? No.
No.
No. That's no. It isn't.
It's not. The show's not going to make it there. It's not going to make it. Season 11.
I can't act. Everybody. This is. I'll tell you.
All you have to do is.
I'll give you a good example. I was interviewing Daniel Henney, and this was pre-recorded.
Yeah.
And we're having this great conversation. It goes on for like 30 or 45 minutes. And it's just really fluid. We're just riffing on questions. We're talking about all sorts of stuff. And I get to the end and like, okay, now you need to end the interview. And I didn't end it properly. So then I had to give them a cut where I ended the interview properly. And Daniel looks at me and he goes, it's your turn now. And he's staring at me. And the entire time, it took me about 5 or 6 times to get a reasonable end to it. And I was like, I can't. It's one thing to have a discussion about something. It's another to act. And so I doubt it.
You know that there is some conspiracy theory
about
you, that you were like some Tor plant meant to control the conversation in ways that Tor Books wants or something. There's got to be, right? No, I don't. I'm just saying there's got to be.
Like, there was a conspiracy theory.
There's got to be, right? Like, that's how conspiracy theories work. It's like you can't trust anything. Matt must be secretly an editor or an employee of Tor who all along job was
the
to
Tor sleeper cell.
Yeah.
Jeez.
No, I don't know that.
I'm like, did you hear something? No, it was. What's interesting about that is the interviews that I did with some of the cast members. It was nice to kind of be able to just riff on questions. There was a moment where Daniel, he mentioned like He-Man or something.
Oh, don't yawn, Brandon. You're gonna make me yawn.
We were talking about our childhoods, and at the end of the interview, the people that were recording it were like, "That's not going to make it into the actual."
Son of a.
And I was like, "Well, it's cool. It was a fun question." I was like, "It was a fun conversation, regardless if it ever makes it anywhere." So, okay. Other questions here. Another kind of.
There's one guy. Before he gets to go, there's one guy who always comments on like the Dusty Wheel and like Brandon's videos is like Luz Theron Telescope. I hope we get a question from Luz Theron Telescope.
Billy Hoyd question. This is from Red the Windrunner. You've said you used to insert Hoyd into fantasy books while you were reading. Into fantasy books you were reading. Is there a character that was your Hoyd insert into the Wheel of Time?
Oh yeah, there was, but I can't remember. It's been so long. Absolutely, there was. It would have been in the first 3 books before I became my own writer. I can barely remember it. Like I can remember the character in the only one I can remember is in Dragon Riders. But
there was somebody in the first 3 books.
Yeah, I'm all we're going like way. I was 15, guys. Come on, I am not going to remember. I'm sorry.
Okay, another Hoyd question might be easier to answer from Dan. What Aja would Hoyd be?
Hoyd would probably have a disguise and persona in each of them.
That's such a
Nice.
cop-out
Mhm.
answer. That's a
That's-
stupid
That's a good
answer.
answer. There you go.
Mhm.
I'd say white.
Lard Bucket asked, the Muppets
Hmm?
decide to adapt Wheel of Time. Who's
Yes.
playing which character? Who is the lone human, and why is it Bella?
Okay. Bella needs to be played by 2 humans in a horse costume if you're going to do that. So I have to say, the best one of these, this is an aside, the best one of these was the comments to the Intentionally Blank, where we were talking about Muppet adaptations. And someone says, well, now that we know that Henry Cavill's doing Warhammer 40K, it should be Muppets and he should be the human.
There you go.
And I'm like, oh, that's just Warhammer 40K.
That's
Well,
gonna be
okay, so
so
who's the
good
human?
if that
Who's the
actually is
human
good. If they comes out and they do it well.
like if you're doing it straight, then the human normally would be like the person taking the most action. So it would probably be Rand,
Rand's the
right?
human. Okay.
Like that's what they tend to do is the human is the person who's kind of both on the hero's journey and or taking the actions. They're the primary protagonist. That's why, it's Ebenezer Scrooge in the Muppets Christmas Carol, right? But there's a world where it's a beautiful one where it's Moiraine is the human,
Okay.
right? And she's there wrangling all these Muppets because that's probably how she feels anyway.
I mean, Fozzie Bear's parent.
They were all like
Fozzie
so
Bear
dumb
is
at the beginning of the
parent.
books. Like all
Miss
the
Piggy is
he
90.
must have
Someone
just
said.
been
Yeah,
like,
so,
so
yeah,
Land,
frustrated
Land
with
as the
Moiraine.
eagle.
Yep.
Them is still flies.
That's what I'm seeing. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to see who else. What have people thrown in here? Okay, so I don't have any more answers for that one. Okay, let's jump on to this next.
Though you could always do Bunsen and Beaker as Moiraine and Lan.
That works too. I like it. What are your? No, sorry. Is there someone
faith in Henry
who
Cavill,
died
good.
that you wished lived? In other words,
Yeah.
that you
Bella.
Bella.
I tried to save Bella and
I know
she
you
killed Bella and then she said that Bella's alive. I don't know what to make of it.
Outside of Bella, is there somebody else that where you're like, this is what's right for the story, where Robert Jordan said this has to happen, but I would have preferred them as a fan that they did not die.
No.
Okay.
That I had, I was fully online with. I mean, let's just say that I mean, we talked about earlier. Team Jordan and I added casualties to the count. We didn't take any away.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the last battle.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone I would
and
want to.
so-
Is there
Who
someone
died?
that you, on the opposite of that, someone who lived that you actually believed should have died?
Who should have died and lived?
Is there somebody
Again,
that?
I had the power
Like
over
Elaine.
this, right? And
Yeah, but that you felt maybe that it was the right story arc, but you really wished they would have died anyway.
I mean, I know what you're hunting for. I know exactly what you want me to say, and I'm not going to say it because
Just go
life,
read-
the life that she's been given is worse than death.
That's true.
For her. So
I was just hunting for a question there. Why not ask that one
Yep.
anyway? Okay. I love this question. This is from 17th Shard. They said, what was the whole Wheel of Time experience like? I know she's not here, but like for your wife, Emily.
She seemed a little overwhelmed by it at times.
Yeah.
She did get to draw a map that ended up in the Wheel of Time after going through the cartographer, the official.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Cool.
yeah, they're like, we need a drawing from you guys of, it might have been Fields of Marilor when it was somewhere. It was one of the maps. I can't remember which map it is.
This is getting me
where
so
they're like,
pumped up for,
we
like,
need
my reread
we
now,
need
though.
someone working on it to give us a sketch that we will then turn into a finished map. And my wife's like, I can do that. She's been reading the notes, so she drew it up and sent it in.
That's cool.
So you really would have to ask her. It was probably fun for her because she really liked Harriet and Team Jordan, and we got to fly out and see them a bunch.
Yeah.
So I think she finds Wheel of Time fandom a little overwhelming.
Sure.
That can
happen to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, this one came from Adam. Elaine seems set up to make significant land claims. She wants marriage alliance with Ibarra and Bashir. The babes have claimed Ilion via Rand. Do you imagine Elaine attempting to consolidate that power.
Yes.
Oh yeah, 100%. She's a
There you
shark.
go. There's your answer.
100% Elaine.
Yes.
Yes.
And are we to understand? Allison Tonelli asked, "Do Matt and Tuan, in your mind, eventually have children?"
Yes.
Little Matts. And
I believe that in
They'd
my
be the
mind, they do.
worst. They'd be the worst people.
Love
Those
it.
two.
Mhm.
Okay, so
kids.
do you? Oh yeah, these are
Matt deserves that.
He deserves it. They'd be,
Matt does deserve.
if Matt raised them, they'd be funny. But if Tuan
I
raised
love
them,
that.
they'd be
Matt
monsters.
does. Let me ask. Yeah, go ahead. You're gonna say something else there. Do you have a favorite? Now it's been 10 years. You wrote 3 of these.
Mhm.
Do you have a favorite Wheel of Time book at this point?
Yeah, still book 4.
It's still book
Shadow
4.
Raya,
Still book
my
4.
favorite. Shadow Rising.
I
best.
reread a bunch of the Wheel of Time for working on the Ways sequence, and I have to say there are just some beautiful passages in book 1, just gorgeous writing. But book 4 is still my favorite. Very fond of book 2.
Yep. Book 11.
Really, really like book 2. Really like 4, 5, and 6. Obviously,
So solid.
they are the I think the high points of the narrative. Really like book 11.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
kind of my hierarchy of where the books that I enjoy. Book 3 is totally serviceable. I don't have problems with book 3, but it's not as much a favorite. It kind of falls into the middle section. Really like New Spring. Lan is one of my favorites, and I like seeing him in New Spring.
I want to hear what his least favorite is.
Yeah, I mean,
it's probably
interesting because all of the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
When I read them, they kind of become my favorite in that moment because there's such good moments in each of them. I was surprised. I went back and read 5 in the last couple of years, and I was surprised how much I kind of in my head skipped over it. A bit.
It gets lost.
So good.
Number 1 because it has really boring cover.
Sure.
Serve some dinner, huh? Okay, that's our dynamic cover of our fantastic.
That's
Wheel
90s
of Time
cover
journey,
right for you. That's
right. 5's the one where there's just
90s
wagons
cover.
and there's
Every cover can't be a winner.
It's like we were talking
and
about
it's
this.
sandwiched between.
We were talking about this in my Discord, like with some of these 90s covers, like especially like I think my least favorite, but it's also the funniest, is Crown of Swords, where you just got like Rand like posing like with his arms out, and it's just like Rand's going home to punch. You know what I mean? It's really funny. Some of them are great.
The Ruidian and the kneel or be knelt, right? It's like
it's easy to forget, but there's such great moments in that book. I love Jordan's decision to not. I hate it, but I love it to not show us Matt Couladin. I love, what
Matt
a great
Couladin.
decision, what a terrible decision, right? As a fan,
that's one
reading it, and you really
the aftermath in that sequence is one of the standout scenes of the whole Wheel of Time. What that all does to Matt and things like that, it's fantastic writing. So
Matt in that book, and maybe that's what I just. There's just some great Matt scenes that I will always love. Okay, so let me. Ask this question from these are from Reddit, I believe. I don't know if are you also populating ones from chat too in that doc? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, we're coming to the end here, everybody. So if you haven't, we'll basically do a couple more questions here, and then I'll ask for probably just our final discussion points between us as far as it comes to the Memory of Light. But these are always fun. If you could create a songgrail to make your life easier, what would it be? Life of Brandon Sanderson. Easy.
Sangreal.
Let's do a Terangreal.
Terangreal, because Sangreal, doesn't. Like.
I mean, there could be a Sangreal
that's an interesting question. I
potentially helped you, but you
guys could have a
channel.
If there are Terangreal that is basically like a time turner, but has no ill side effects, so I can just get more done in the day.
Oh my gosh. You want to write more books?
I'm so behind.
I'm just saying, there's like everyone out there is like, wait a second, what would their lives be like if you
hilarious.
8 books a year or something?
Like
no one could
most
most
years I have 1 or 2. This year we have extras because of the year of Sanderson.
Yeah, maybe that's that's what I'm most aware of.
Yeah, you're very aware of this, but I am so behind on all the stories I want to tell. It would be super nice.
All of your fans are like, shut up, Matt.
There would
Let
be
him
a
write-
time
let
turner
him get a
for
turner
Ontario.
grail that lets him write.
Somebody get me a
There has
time
to be one
turner.
made.
That's the best thing that I could think of for time travel abilities is to write extra books. Maybe there's a little bit more Hermione in me than I've acknowledged in the past.
I love it. Derek Sudbury said, "What's the sequence that Sanderson felt the most excited to write? I love the forging of Perrin's hammer. Still gives me the chills.
That
Did
was
anything
good.
give Brandon chills while writing it?" Yeah.
It
That's
is
part
the
of-
forging of the hammer,
Is it?
probably.
Okay.
It's either that or Veins of Gold.
Okay.
Are my two that, like, as I built the outline, because these are both scenes that I got to write and I got to devise and put together, and I was super excited for some other scenes, but they were I was excited for fans to
Hammer
read what
forging is the
Robert
best
Jordan
part
had
of
written
Towers of
for some of
Midnight.
those scenes.
Well,
Yeah.
and then
But
the Matt
I
scene
had
with
I had a
Power.
lot of leeway with Rand and Perrin.
Yeah.
And I feel like I really wanted to make good on the promises with those. I love I really like that I was able to do, like they call him Darth Rand.
Yes.
Darth
Zen
Rand.
Rand, and Darth Rand.
Darth
Yeah,
Rand and
Zen
Zen
Rand, Darth Rand, and then just kind of coming back to normal Rand, grown and experienced. But the
Zen Rand was amazing
Rand
with the
that
apples at
is,
the beginning.
I
book
liked
11, or
taking
book
Rand
13,
away
sorry.
from you for a little while and having him be this Zen thing, and then coming back and being like, all right, it was such a wonderful experience because it feels like what happened in book 3, where we kind of lost Rand for a while, but a different kind of losing Rand. Those sorts of things where I can echo something previously in the series and really kind of do it well. Those were some of my favorite things to do.
Perrin, Slayer, Teleron Riad, the nightmare scenes, like all those scenes to me were just they finally delivered on a promise, I think, that was in the books. We were always wondering when this was
So
going
sad
to happen.
to see Hopper
Right.
die.
And
Not
how
Hopper.
much of that Perrin Slayer was you
Was me?
bringing that?
I've said before, my direction for Perrin was very light. I had not very much. I mean, what's in the outline? Have you read?
I mean, the summary one that I have. I'm trying to remember. I technically can do a search for Perrin.
There's like 2 things.
There's like a Matt and Perrin reunite mention.
Yeah.
There's a mention of Oliver and Perrin's Ashman.
Oh, I never liked Oliver.
Rand has Perrin with the Two Rivers Bowmen.
Yeah.
And then there's not much more in the, like I said,
There's nothing really for Perrin's arc in it. It was just I've often said Perrin's blank slate. Like there's some places he needs to be, but there's no, this is who Perrin is in these last books, which we knew we needed after even book 11, particularly after book 10. Book 11 is like, who is Perrin? And Perrin's my favorite character, was my favorite character before I started writing.
Yeah.
They're all my favorite now. But being able to be like, all right, read it and be like, all right, we got some work to do, my buddy Perrin. Let's do this.
And Brandon salvaged Perrin.
After Perrin, the journeys of Perrin looking for Fail. I think it was almost a revelation of Perrin, and like you said, that culmination of the hammer itself. I think Perrin does shine in a way that a lot of us hoped and that he would. So
I imagine a structure for the Wheel of Time that is just my personal structure, which is I've talked about this before. Books 1, 2, and 3 are kind of quest fantasies, hearkening of the old school quest fantasies of the 70s and 80s, the very Tolkien-inspired quest fantasies. Obviously, by 3, he's starting to stray from that. These aren't, but 4, 5, and 6 are the new world of fantasy. He and George R. Martin are doing political intrigue, War of the Roses, large-scale things like that. That is what fantasy became when it kind of came into its own in the 90s. 7 through 10 are Robert Jordan realizing, I'm not ready for the end of this yet. There's a whole world to explore. I'm going to go explore the world.
Yeah.
Right. Let's explore all the things I can do in this world. And I like though, of course, there are important moments for Rand, Perrin, Matt, Egwene, and that they take a back seat, I think, to exploring the world.
Okay.
That's how I envision that.
Sure. That definitely paints them in a light that's different than fans that waited on those books.
And then 11, 12, 13, and 14 are all right. We've spent the time building the world out. Now we need to refocus on things that that bring us back, reintroduced Rand, Perrin, Matt, Egwene
Yeah, that's a good
in
point.
their new status, who they are, and build a trilogy, 4 books really, that deliver on kind of the first books. So
Yeah, no,
that's
Because it did feel like with the last, like, well, I guess from like 7 through 10, right? Robert Jordan was
that's
setting
my
up for the
envision
finale, but
of the
like, yeah, getting
breakdown
his
of
world
what
building in.
the eras of the Wheel of Time, so to speak. So
Kevin asks, do you have a favorite brand of Trolloc?
favorite brand of Trolloc? Ooh,
He said, and why is it the
Yeah.
bird Trollocs?
I was gonna go bird Trolloc
Bird
because I like
Trollocs? Okay.
birds. But you know,
You do like birds, so yeah.
I have to say everyone should be very proud of my reserve. And like there were so many calls for Narg cameos and things like that.
Narg.
Do you remember this?
No.
And I would always have to say to fans, I'm like, there is a difference between a kind of thematic reference that is part of the series and an in-joke. And you have to be really careful about the in-jokes. You can put them in occasionally, but you want to be really careful with the in-jokes. That's different from, hearkening back to how Rand in book 3 had gone through a huge transition. So we pull back from his viewpoint. And then I do that as well in book, 13. Having Narg show up would have just been too much. So
yeah, Narg is a one-off.
Yeah,
I got lots of calls for Narg cameos.
Narg cameos? Okay.
So many calls for Narg cameos.
That's hilarious.
Um,
I see this maybe last question or two here. Vidarfe asked, will Rand at some point realize that Lanfear is alive? Did you imagine that there would ever be
I'd say no.
An awareness?
I think yes.
Yes,
yes,
it would happen at some
I
point.
think
I
it
guess
would
with
happen,
Rand's powers,
but Rand
make
would
sense.
not intervene.
Okay.
Is what I think would happen.
There you go. Okay.
Mhm.
I just want to thank you for taking the time. I know there's lots of there's other
I want
questions,
to say on that.
Yeah.
That thing. I think there's got to be a moment. Not that it'll be written, but there's got to be a moment where Lanfear realizes, because she hasn't let go of Rand. She pretends she has. The whole thing about the last books is she pretends she's let go, where she sees how happy he is, and it all comes crashing down around her.
Do you think that she does? He's obviously in Moradin's body.
Yes.
So in my head, I'm thinking, like, would she ever see this individual? And
I think she's got to, for her character arc, realize
she knows what's happened.
Okay. And if she's ever going to be fully defeated, there has to be that realization of me not being part of his life is the best thing that could have happened to him. Well, how do I feel about that? And I don't know. I haven't been on that journey with her, but there's got to be that moment, right? I think.
A
still the
Lanfear
fourth age,
novella
everyone.
would be
That's
cool.
right.
I would
Fourth
like
age
a
continues the
novella.
saga of Mira and Arenelle and Luz there and Telemon.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you everyone for being here. This has been a lot of fun. Again, like we said, this is at the very least been 10 years in the making. And it's fun to come back here and finally be able to share some of these stories.
I can stop being asked these questions. I can just reference this live stream. I should put them on the URL in the back of raffle cards.
Yeah.
For anyone who asks.
I love it.
Yeah.
And Taylor got to be there, which I think is so funny. He and I have waited. He's like, you're going to do this reveal some point in the future. And so when you brought it up on that live stream back in April that we did for Secret Project, I was like, we should do this. This will be awesome. So thank you for making the time and sharing this final secret and for trusting me to know the answer about Lanfear, or trusting Taylor to be your letter for the letter to the future. This has been awesome. Hopefully you all have enjoyed this.
I did, for sure.
I don't know if we'll ever do a 10-year, 20 years. Is there another secret, Brandon?
I do that. Kelsier says there's always another secret, but I don't know them. Robert Jordan does. So
there you go, everybody. There will likely not be. I don't want to say it feels weird. With the Wheel of Time, it's like there's never an end to secrets.
Yes.
Or a beginning. There's just
maybe someday we can talk about experiences with the show. in
There we
ways
go.
that
Oh.
we can't really
Oh my
talk about
gosh.
them right now.
That is, we
Mhm.
need to do that.
Yeah.
Because I have comments. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
well, okay, that you heard it. We'll come back and do a live stream about
That's
the show
another turning of the
someday.
wheel,
Someday.
that's
And
for
we
sure.
can talk about it.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
with that being said, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this. And like I said, join us on Sunday if you want to keep on talking about A Memory of Light with us. Harriet and Maria will be there. It'll be fun.
Okay, well they're done pretty much. Yeah, so I guess this was a good stream. It was 2 hours. I don't think they revealed anything like crazy secret wise. I really would have liked to have, known about the pipe and known about Nakomi and but I think like the secret of Lanfear, I think that was a good secret, like not like mind-blowing secret. But I also do like that some of them went to Robert Jordan's grave and that we won't get to know them. And I think that's part of the fun of it though, like where we can speculate, right? We don't have to know the answer. And it's kind of like almost, with Michael Crichton too, when he writes his novels, they just end and it's left up to you as the reader to use your imagination, because it's almost like with Robert Jordan and like this in this book now, or these books now, where he's done all the heavy lifting. He's done the creation of the world and these characters and this story, and now it's really up to you as the reader to come up with the ending you like. And like, how did Rand light the pipe? I don't know. Maybe he's an avatar of the like of the creator, or who knows what. But I think after reading those 14 books, you should have a theory as a fan, like to think about what happened. So no, I love it. This is a good live stream. I'm glad I watched it, and I'm glad I kind of streamed it. And I'd love to see all you guys' thoughts in the comments and stuff like that. So I'm gonna end it here, though, guys. Thank you guys for watching. This is a lot of fun, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.